Lance Childers, born and raised here in Houston.
What would be the proper terminology to describe what you do?
I'm a filmmaker. That term kind of encompasses everything from writing, directing, cinematography, sound mixing, editing. So yeah, it's kind of an all-encompassing term.
How long have you been into filmmaking?
I made my first short film probably about 8 years ago. I broke my ankle and I couldn't really do anything, and I got into photography, just taking really crappy photos with a GoPro, and then that gradually transitioned into filmmaking because I wanted to tell stories.
What or who inspired you to get into film?
I think it had always been this kind of unknown passion that I had. I would, be listening to a song or hear something, and I would just have these visuals in my head, and it got to a point where I really wanted to figure out if I could express that and take those inner thoughts and put them into a visual and audible medium that myself and others could see.
Now, you said you got into filmmaking because you broke your ankle. Is that the only way?
For me?
Yeah.
Was that the only reason?
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't for that, I'm not sure when or if it would have happened, but because I was my outlet was taken away, which was skateboarding, I gravitated and discovered another one. I was forced to branch out to find another outlet, at least for that time, but it stuck with me and it grew, and I love it more now than I did then.
I know you produced The Gold Line, but do you have any other short films?
Yeah, I made some really bad short films probably about 6 or 8 years ago, and then I started picking up clients, people reaching out for me to make short promotional or marketing videos for them, and I've made a few short films in the past 4 years or so, and then I hadn't made any for a while, and then I made The Gold Line, started shooting that about 2 years ago, and I finished it about a little under a year ago.
So with the Gold Line, so you wrote the script for it, you picked the cast, and you picked the spots. You did the whole production?
I guess, well, as far as writing, I wouldn't. There wasn't a screenplay. There was a concept, definitely. I wanted to showcase skateboarding in a new light, as far as what skateboarding is, rather than just sort of documenting stunts, which is how I feel a lot of skate videos are now. It's stunt, 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 but there's not a build, and there's not sort of an underlying narrative under it all. And I wanted to bring to light at least what skateboarding is for me, as far as the friendships, and skating alone is fun, but skating with others is even more fun. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
No, that did. You answered that perfectly. So when you had the concept for the Gold Line, was it so did it stick to the original concept, or did it change along the way? Did your vision change for the film?
Definitely changed. Previously, my initial thought was to film everybody in this one shot of having everyone do this really complicated line. That's what we skateboarders call it, where you have a sequential tricks or consecutive tricks back to back, and have this really long, well choreographed line, and it would be kind of a standalone clip. But then I realized it needed to be more, and there needed to be a build up to that point. And so that's what really the other 3/4 of the film is the build up to that moment at the end.
Which part of your film took the longest to, I guess, complete? Was it the tricks, the lines?
As far as the individual clips to film was the last scene, of course, because it was the most choreographed, but the first 2/3 to 3/4 of the film took equally as long, but there was a lot more screen time that those clips took up. So of course they took a long time to film, and I went into planning out the lighting in the locations. I'd go to those spots before we'd film and study the light and say, okay, at such and such time the light's refracting off this window and kind of shattering all over this sidewalk or the bench or whatever. And so that took a long time planning out the shots. And then of course we only filmed on Sunday mornings because downtown is empty. It's the only day that downtown's really empty, and I wanted that sense of finding solitude even in this dense urban landscape. At least for me, skateboarding, when I'm skating, there could be tons of people around, but when I'm actually on the board, it all just falls away, and I'm just in that exact moment and not thinking about the future, what I'm going to do tomorrow, and not thinking about what happened 5 seconds ago. And it's a really great feeling.
Now, with the film, did anyone else help you with the project?
Yeah, Caleb Gonzalez, he was the assistant director, and basically that consists of helping me get transportation for everybody, helping me coordinate permits, helping me lug my camera gear around so that instead of messing with the gear, I'm filming. And so, we were lugging just tons of gear around downtown, and it was guerrilla style filmmaking, which means, you don't have this big crew around, so your gear is just kind of ready for the taking. Anyone could have walked up and stolen it, so Caleb really helped me with that as well.
So how did he get the role of assistant director? I mean, how did you select him out of the millions of people in Houston?
My best friend, so that's how he got the role.
And when you selected the cast for this film, what was the process?
We went through about probably 10 skaters, and it was very complex because this project, and I told everyone going in that this was not going to be the kind of film where we meet a few times and get some clips in and it's done. I said going in, if I'd love for you all to be a part of this, but just know it's going to be a long-term commitment. Could be close to a year, and it ended up actually being just short of a year that it took to shoot it, and not just every once in a while. It was constant, and yeah, there were quite a few skaters that were not up to the task, but luckily I found 6 that were, and I'm so glad the skaters that it did work out with, because I think everyone had a great chemistry. And obviously you have to if you're spending all those early mornings at the skate park, and some of those mornings were really cold, and so I think they really played well off of each other.
Now, once you completed the project, what was the feeling when you had your first premiere?
I was terrified during the screening. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I'm not sure why, because I put everything I had into the film. I felt it was not possible for me to have put more effort into it. So at a certain point it was like, whatever happens, happens. But I'm not sure why I was so nervous. I guess it was because my film was playing up on this big screen in front of a few hundred people, but once the Q&A started and everyone seemed to really like it, it was pretty exhilarating, just that feeling of I'm guessing I put between 1,000 to 1,500 hours into the film, as far as from the planning to the actual filming to the post-production. Post-production took about 6 straight months of me working on it, probably 20 to 30 hours a week. And sometimes more, sometimes 40 hours a week. You know, it was very intense, so it was exhilarating to say the least.
Did you ever submit it to any film festivals? And if so, what was the outcome?
Yeah, I submitted it to quite a few film festivals, and luckily it was well received, and it played around the country. It played in the UK. But I think my favorite event that it got into was the Texas Filmmakers Showcase, and the Houston Film Commission selected 90 minutes of short films, their favorite short films from the past year, and the Gold Line was one of the 6 to make it in from around the state. So that was I think my favorite event, and it played in Los Angeles at the Directors Guild of America Center.
Are you planning on doing another film?
Yeah, I've written another short film. It's going to be a narrative short film, meaning you have characters, character development, heavy emphasis on story, and I've started writing that last year. Spent about 6 months on a 15-page screenplay, and I'm hoping to shoot that later this year.
Well, let us know when the casting call is, you know, if you need an old guy. Now, you're definitely in a tough industry. Do you plan on making this a career?
Well, I've been freelancing for a few years now, doing marketing, corporate videos. But my goal is to get a full-time employment with a production company. So instead of me having my own clients, I'd rather to have an employer and have more regular hours and continue to make my short films, and eventually my goal is to make a feature film. I think that's almost every filmmaker's dream, is to make a feature film, but I'm pushing toward that, and it is a tough industry, but I put everything I have into every film that I make. Yeah, I think skateboarding was a great primer for filmmaking, just because it keeps you very grounded and humble. When you think you know what you're doing, you realize that you don't, and there's such a high rate of failure. You know, trying a new trick or trying to get that line, you know, you'll fail 100 times and you succeed for 5 seconds. And with skateboarding, you have to be okay with that. Even the greatest skateboarders on the planet face that every time they skate. And I think that a lot of people think that success is defined differently from what it actually is, and you need to be constantly succeeding, but also that there's this kind of delineation between what is success and what is failure. And I think failure really fuels success. Knowing how to fail is very powerful.
Now, you are also a killer vert skater, but which is your favorite? And you cannot say both.
I guess I'll start by I've thought about this, and they fuel each other, and I think it's important, and I learned this once I discovered filmmaking, is that before I only had kind of one passion, and that was skateboarding, and in a way it kind of drained skateboarding for me. I always loved it, but there was nothing to offset it as far as a creative outlet. And with skateboarding, it's very aggressive and it's very physical, and with filmmaking, it refreshes me from skateboarding, and skateboarding refreshes me from filmmaking. When I've had a long day of editing, I can go to the skate park, you know, if I'm stuck on an edit and I just cannot figure out how to make it work, whether it be special effects or sound mixing or just conceptual issues, and I go skate, and it never fails that I have an epiphany and I'm able to work through whatever the issue is. And with skateboarding, when I was just only skateboarding, sometimes it felt a little bit repetitive, and with filmmaking it's very creative and it's very conceptual and it's very mental, and skateboarding gets me out of those ruts in filmmaking, and filmmaking keeps skateboarding fresh. So it's almost like a coexistence where I don't think it's a matter of having favorites, but I need both. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer.
A great answer, and I'm gonna let you slide. I'll let you slide on that one. But just to let you know, it was tough doing an interview and not asking you anything about your career in skating, but we're gonna save it for another time. Lance, thank you for the opportunity for letting us interview you. Do you have any last words?
Keep shredding.